The new X-Drive BMW M3 is one of the best cars money can buy. It's all-wheel drive. It's a wife-approved family car. And with just 4 mods, it has a faster quarter-mile time than a $1.9 million Bugatti Veyron. But we're not here to pick on supercars. We're racing against some of the fastest M3s and M4s in the nation. But, well, things didn't really go to plan, and we're left with one big problem. You see, the original plan was to have the motor and all of the parts ready for June 1, because the show and the race is on July 9th. Today is July 5th, and it's almost noon. What does that mean? That means I thought I had 30 days, and now I have 3.5 days to get done not only the motor, but all of this. So today we're installing a built motor, built trans, cooling, fueling, and you know we have some while you're there mods, all before we break it in, tune it, and then it's full send at the track. Now the last time we had this car on the dyno with a stock block and stock turbos, we put down 700 wheel horsepower and ran a 9.8 quarter mile.
We got a 9.8, yes!
Completely nuts considering all we had was a custom boot mode tune for ethanol, we had a trans flash, we had higher flowing exhaust, and we had tires. But what happens at that power level is you kind of get a little bit capped because you run out of turbo and you run out of fueling. So today we're going to address both of those, starting with the turbo problem. As you can see here, we have the Mosselman S58 turbos. These are some of the coolest turbos on the market. Many of you know I ran Mosselman on my F80 M3 and they got me 850 wheel horsepower, which is pretty nuts for a car that only came with like 400. If you take a look over here, you will see a stock turbo and then you will see the upgraded Mosselman on the right. What they do is they use a brand new turbo from BMW. They gut it, they bore it out, they put it in their CNC, and then they put new internals to make it push significantly more air. The other thing that I really love about this, because it's a stock housing, you can run stock downpipes, you can run stock exhaust, which I love because I run 4 cats on all my M cars. And the last thing I love about Mosselman turbos, other than I think they are the best bang for the buck, if you take a look over here, this is a factory inlet. Even Turi saw this and said, we can do better. So they came out with this inlet, which eats this inlet for more airflow. Well, Mosselman did the same thing. They saw the Eventuri and said, I can do that. They made it out of aluminum. And check this out. The inner diameter of the Mosselman is the outer diameter of the Eventuri. And it's nothing Eventuri did wrong. They just designed it for a stock housing. But since Mosselman made this so much bigger, Mosselman came out with a killer solution. And these are currently available for Eventuri, which we're gonna run today. Mishimoto's coming, and also the stock configuration, all of which is down in the description below. All right, it's time to install the turbos. Before you install any turbo, use Liqui-Moly's turbo additive. Squirt a little bit of this inside of the turbo before you install your oil line. It's gonna stick in there and it's going to make sure that your turbo is properly lubricated. If you don't do that, you gotta remember, there's no oil in this thing, and your first startup could turn into catastrophic turbo failure. Prevent it for like 10 bucks with Liqui-Moly's turbo additive. Oh, and while we're there, we have a while you're there mod, the Mishimoto charge pipe. What's funky on BMW's end is you have to take apart half your cooling system to be able to install a charge pipe, so might as well throw it on while we're there. It's aluminum, the plastic one gets brittle over time, and also it has these really thick silicone ends. What a lot of people don't know is the stock pipe is very thin rubber, and what happens under high boost pressures, it expands and contracts and makes it a nightmare for your tuner. Get more consistency with the Mishimoto charge pipe. Now, if If you're like us, you are while you're there, guys. And what that means is while you're doing something like putting big turbos on, doubling the fueling and all that kind of stuff, thinking about, okay, what's gonna break next? And I'd rather do it now and bulletproof it than have an issue at the track. So that being said, that we're chasing big numbers on this S58 is we built the trans. And that's because the trans will actually start to slip before you have an issue with your motor. These motors are incredibly capable and many people are running them at 800 and 900 wheel horsepower, which is insane. I even heard of a company doing 960 wheel horsepower stock motor. Mind-blowing, but you'll never get there with a stock trans. So the first thing we did is we took our trans and we sent it up to Long Island to Pure Drivetrain Solutions, and they did a stage 2 build for us. And we thought, while we're there, we might as well do it right and send the torque converter because it's literally attached. So that way they were able to convert it to a high stall unit. And we thought, while we're there and we can't drive the car, we might as well send them the transfer case to build just so we don't have any future issues while it's all apart. And while we're there, the motor was just hanging out in the car with no friends and we couldn't drive the car. So we thought, you know what? Let's call 5150 Autosport and have them do a full build. We did a ported head, we did valves, we did springs, we did retainers, we did pistons, we did rods, fire ring, wrist pins, ARP head studs, ARP main studs, every seal and gasket you can imagine. And we did the works to make this motor capable of 1300 horsepower, and we have a supporting transmission as well. With that, I've talked way too much, so let's drop in our bulletproof drivetrain. All right, with our new turbo, our new engine, and our transmission installed, we want to make sure that all of those components are going to work in their prime. Therefore, we have a brand new cooling system we're going to be running on the car. So over here on your right, we have the Mishimoto transmission cooler, the Mishimoto engine oil cooler over here, which I run on my F80 M3, and it's amazing. We have a Wagner heat exchanger, and this is all the way from Germany to make sure that that turbocharged air is going to stay nice and cool. In the middle, we have a loaner part. Now, I say that is a loaner part because I gave my Wagner cooler to Bill to put on his G87 M2, and my new cooler hasn't come in yet. This is technically for a different car, but I'm gonna borrow it for the show, so don't tell anybody. We were actually involved in the early development of this product, and we had this on our car several months ago, which Zach can put a clip in of right now. But before we install any of this, while we still have ample room from all these parts being out of the car, let's install this. Precision Raceworks brand new low pressure fuel pump for the G8X with the S58 engine. This is a brand new pump and I couldn't be more excited about it, and here's why. Typically, when you have an upgraded fuel pump, it has a single line and it sends all of the fuel to it, and if you want to run port injection, you tap the line, you split the fuel between your direct injectors and also your port injection. With this one, oh no, we don't do that. First off, it uses a brushless fuel pump, which is the best you can get on the market, and second, you'll notice that it has 3 ports. It has a return, it uses your stock fuel system to support your direct injectors, and with this system that I have, it has a brushless pump that's dedicated, has a full dedicated line and everything just to run port injection. So you no longer have to tee off your fuel line and split it between 12 injectors. Now you have a dedicated pump for maximum power. So with that, let's throw it in. right, so at this point, everything is 98% together. What we need to do now is one of the most important things you can do to a brand new build motor, and that is prime the oil system. What you basically do is you remove all of your spark plugs, and then you disconnect all of the electronics to your fuel pump so fuel is not flowing, and we're going to just let it try to crank over just for a few minutes. That's going to build our oil pressure, and then we can reassemble everything and light it up for real. All right, it's time to start it.
Let's see if we got it.
Ah, the chair of conflict. Let's talk. All right, from this point on, things didn't go exactly the way we had planned. The plan was get everything buttoned up, drive 1,000 miles, break it in, get it tuned, full send at the track, be a hero, do some cool times. Yeah, it didn't really work out that way. So Andrew and I finally finished the car around 12:30 a.m. about one day before the show. And from there, we had to put on some miles in the night. So we went, we got gas. The original plan was that, well, the original plan was you had over a month to do this, but to put 1,000 miles on this thing to break in the motor and the trans. Technically, you can get away with 500 miles. And frankly, we only had one day. And if we were gonna drive for 20 hours at 50 miles an hour, I mean, it just wasn't possible to do. So we just got as many miles on the car as humanly possible. So at this point, our time window was dwindling away. We had less than a day to get everything ready. And we just had to honestly say, you know what? We don't have time to do a full tune revision for port injection. Let's just save that for next time. And then we'll just go to a regular direct injection tune, which we already had that ran us a 9.8 quarter mile. And my thought was, okay, we just revamped all of the cooling. So we should say cooler, which technically can get you more power. We also put big turbos on. Even though the tune isn't optimized for it, it should still run pretty close to what we did before. So we said, you know what, let's full send. But there's no way that 20-inch wheels with all season tires are gonna make it anywhere down the track. So we had to make a change, and we had to get our 5th set of Apex VS 5RS wheels.
Please don't tell my wife about this.
My favorite wheels, and we got them again in my favorite color, the Motorsport Gold. Now, what is super cool about these wheels is the first set that's an 18 by 10.5 square setup that's going to be run on an X-Drive G80 M3. Now, the significance of this is it allows you to not only run a 305/35/18 in the rear, it allows you to run one in the front. But there's a little bit of a catch. You see, when Apex told me about the wheels, they said they had to run a 5mm spacer to run our 888Rs on a stock suspension setup. I'm not a stock suspension setup, so I had no idea if it was gonna fit or if I just threw thousands of dollars out the window. So I started with the rears naturally, and everything was absolutely perfect, and I was super pumped. So then I moved to the front, and it didn't fit. So since it needed a little help, I put a 10mm spacer on and put it on, and it worked, but I had like this much space between my tire and my spring, and I was like, you know what, if the tire bulges or anything like that, because it is a Mickey Thompson, it's gonna have an issue and I don't want to rub and all that. So I bumped it up for safety to a 15mm, but unfortunately the more spacer I put, the more poke I had, which is a look I wasn't really going for. But being that it is a drag setup and it's not going to be a setup that I drive really at all, because, well, Mickey Thompsons don't even last, so good luck driving on them. It's really just here, 15 minutes to the drag strip, and back anytime I'm on them, so it's not a big deal. And actually, I kind of like the look, if I'm being honest. I thought it looked super meaty and super aggressive, and everybody at the show was like, what wheels are these? So it didn't bother anybody, and it looked really cool. All right, so at this point, we had the car as buttoned up as humanly possible given our time frame, and the next day, we headed out to the Kies Auto Show. On that, I just want to say huge thanks to my wife, Caitlin. She does an amazing job organizing these events. This year, we sold over 1,100 tickets, which is a lot of people. We had spectators on top of that. We had car show participants. We had food trucks. We had vendors, and heck, we had racing, and we had some of the fastest S58s in the nation. Joe, Bernard, Rick, Merrick, all these guys and more were doing these crazy times down the track. once again, huge thanks to Kate for putting on such a great event. As many of you know, we use the Kies Auto Show as a charity event to give back. This year, we gave to families in Lebanon who are struggling for basic necessities like water, food, and baby supplies, so it's all for a great cause. Now, since we were at a racetrack and Kate put this thing on, I had to race her, so I gave her a 5-second pep talk on how to use launch control. We got her helmet, got her through tech inspection, and she raced her X7 M60 down the track right alongside of me. She put down an amazing 12.8 quarter mile in an SUV that weighs like 7,000 pounds, completely stock. I can't wait to see what that car is going to do tuned. Oh, and for my car, well, it didn't catch fire, but there was a lot of smoke. Dude, it's everywhere. All right, let's drop the trans. Just hope we don't have to pull the motor again.